Hello, 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 and welcome back to the UV podcast. I am so excited to be getting into another episode, another case study. This one is going to be a fun one. I always say that. Do I always say that? I don't know. But it is. Mostly because this one is my brother. Yeah. I did this process on him earlier on when I started the research. And yeah, I mean, it was a really good conversation. He got a lot out of it. Those of you who know me, you know my brother. I talk about him a lot. He is one of my very best friends, and we talk about a lot of things, a lot. He is a very spiritual person, and also a very hilarious person, and so. In this conversation, I was listening back to it, and it seems a little like confrontational, but it's maybe it's just because it's between siblings. But there are a couple moments that I'm going to add in that you're going to hear about when he's kind of questioning some parts of the process. But like, it's good. I really, really welcome that, and I think if I can I can convince my brother of something that I'm doing is like really good, then I think I think I've done something good. If you can convince your sibling that you're doing something really interesting, then I think then you're probably on the right track. But yeah, no. But no, he's super supportive, and he's great. He's also a musician. His stage name is Markel. He's an incredible songwriter and a developing producer, and his music is wonderful. He just released an EP earlier this year. Was it earlier this year? Yeah, earlier this year. Man, time is an illusion. Earlier this year, and it was so good. And he's working on another big project coming out very soon. But yeah, I am very excited to get us into this episode. Another FYI, it's just sound when we're recording. Especially in the earlier processes, people didn't really realize that we were doing like a podcast thing. I didn't know I was going to do the podcast thing. So there will be a few different like squeaks and just little sounds, and I hope you can bear with it. I wasn't able to cut everything out, but yeah, it's pretty good for the most part. So yeah, I'm excited to get into this conversation, and yeah, without further ado, let's jump into it. Okay, so right off the bat, we're going to jump into identify step 1, but we're going to kind of fast forward quite a lot into the process, mostly because, we've had a few episodes where we've gotten in-depth looks into identify step 1. You see how that works. And of course, I just want to focus on those highlight moments, those moments I feel like you guys might find interesting or can learn from, and also that give you a little insight into the person that we are that the case study is about. So we're going to fast forward into this one. At this point, I am asking my brother about, well, let me rewind. So at this point, I had asked him to list out, the things that he does in his profession and in his hobbies. Like I shared before, he's a musician. He's also an investor. He's also, he's a writer, and yeah, a few other things. He also, like in terms of hobbies and things, singing is his own hobby as well, but he's also into spiritual development, meditation, exercise, educating himself on these types of areas. So yeah, that's kind of the spectrum of where his passions and interests lie. And so at this point, I'm asking him to tell me what he finds contributes to the things that he is best at and the things that he enjoys the most. What is it about him that he feels like contributes to this? So this is his answer.
One word that lends to this area, like helps it.
That you would contribute to your enjoyment and aptitude of this thing.
Something about brings me joy, which is why.
So something about you that you believe contributes to your ability to do this thing.
Oh.
So it's an attribute / ability. If you
just want to think of freeness inside of this singing. I'm free.
Okay, so now we're going to fast forward quite a bit into this process. I'm really kind of going through step 1 just because I didn't feel like we needed to share too much about this moment. There were a lot more interesting moments later on, so I'm fast forwarding through. We're at this point where we We figured out some more internal abilities. We saw imagination that came out in writing and songwriting, being analytical, which came out in his studying of different information, whether it be from market trends to spiritual development, and also passion, which came out in pitching and selling his ideas to people. So yeah, that was super exciting. That's super cool. And so at this point, we kind of fast forward a bit. We figure out that all of these are his innate gifts. The ones that we listed, they're all innate gifts.
These are your innate gifts. Your innate gifts is a sense of freedom. You're an imaginative person.
My imagination.
You are an analytical person.
Mm-hmm.
And you are a passionate person.
That's true. That's true about me.
We also came up with him being a compassionate person as well. So after that clip, he sounds like he's really connects to all these. But we kind of go on a little bit of a tangent, and he wasn't really feeling 100%, himself that day, or just 100%. He decided he'd still do it with me today anyway, and I really wanted him to. I felt like it might be able to help, and it did eventually. But, he shares here just that, he was saying that right now he just wouldn't really consider himself to be the things that he listed.
Yeah, like right now I wouldn't consider myself very free or very passionate or very compassionate or very creative.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't consider myself any of those things right now.
And it's understandable because a lot of times we don't see our internal gifts at use until we're using them through our external abilities.
Right.
That is the only way really to, unless you're a self-aware person, the only way to really see your innate gifts at work is when you're using them, right? When you're using them, and external abilities is that outlet, right? So there are other ways too, but external abilities is that main outlet. So when you're doing that thing that you love and that you're passionate about and that you enjoy, it's likely in those moments that you're going to really be able to see these things standing out.
Yeah, I mean, we all have those down days, those days where we just feel like we don't know how to be like a human being. We don't see potential in ourselves. We don't want to do anything. We can't see that we can do anything. And those days are just such a struggle. But like what I said, we don't recognize, our potential capabilities when we're just sitting still, I mean, some people can, but especially on those hard days, it's really difficult to see that you're, something special, that you're something important. But when you push yourself to kind of recognize, okay, what are things I'm passionate about? Why am I passionate about it? Put yourself in the position to then trigger that passion, get your blood flowing, get your heart pumping. Then it's in those moments you get to see who you are, what you're capable of, why you do what you do, why you love it, why you're so good at it, right? And then you start to recognize your potential. I mean, you don't get anywhere by sitting still and hoping that you'll feel better soon, Self-care is not just about taking a bubble bath and listening to your favorite sad song. No. Self-care is about doing the work that will make you better, right? Make you feel better, make you an actively better individual, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's part of that. Recognizing your innate gifts is about recognizing why you do what you do, why you love it, and why you're good at it. And so in these moments when you feel like you don't offer anything or that you really aren't, whatever it is that when you're on your high days, that that you are, you put yourself in the position where you can immerse yourself in your passions and therefore immerse yourself in your potential. Okay, so now we are jumping over to step 2, define. I felt like in the first half it was a lot of me talking, but now we really get to learn a lot more about this participant, my dear brother. We get to learn about what he, the impact that he makes, what he offers in the world, his value. But first, let's hear a little message from our sponsor.
I need food in my belly right now. I'm just saying, I need food. Food. I need food. I need food in my belly. All right.
I hope you enjoyed that message. My brother, he did so many random spurts of singing during the process, and I just had to include one of them. So I hope you enjoyed that. So let's go ahead and just jump straight into now. Define step 2. Let's go.
So let's start. How would you personally define just value, the word?
Worth is one of the first words that comes to mind, but I don't know if that's how I would define it.
Give me a definition. What would you say?
Value.
It doesn't be a perfect definition.
No. Like it's a distinct set of like qualities that make up your worth.
What are those? Do you think you can tell me what kind of qualities those are?
Huh?
You think you can tell me what kind of qualities those are?
No, everything has a different value. It's a distinct set of qualities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So how I think that's definitely a part of value for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've always defined like an impact as like 3 things. Value is the impact that helps someone achieve something, solve a problem, or better their lives in any way.
So when you ask, like, what is value, you're talking about for a human being?
I just wanted to gauge your idea of value, firstly.
Well, that's kind of hard, because human being is invaluable compared to something like a lamp that has value.
That's not necessarily true. I mean, a lamp can have value, and so can a human.
No, I mean, there is no way to, like, there's no... If you ask me, like, what do you think value means, I would never say the same definition for a human versus a lamp. Because...
Why not?
Well, because a human being doesn't have... There's no way you can put a price or a value on it or on a human being.
Why do you say that?
Because he has the same value that you do. The person next to you has the same value that you do. It doesn't matter what they look like or what they've done in the world. They just do have the same value as you.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so that's why. But if you put one lamp next to another, you can gauge the different values between 2 lamps. Or a lamp versus a water bottle, or a lamp versus depending on what you... So if we're talking about the value of someone's, like, skill sets in a particular moment, that's a whole different thing. So
you look at value mostly in terms of money, right?
No, I look at value in terms of what you need. Mostly.
That's an important thing to keep in mind, because I feel like, that's what I'm trying to get to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can compare 2 lamps together and gauge, but one person's comparison of this lamp to that lamp might be like, oh, this lamp's way more valuable, whereas another person would look at it and be like, oh, this lamp's way more valuable. Maybe it's because, oh, this lamp has white light, this is what I need, but that other lamp has yellow light, the other person would see that, right? It's about what the person is needing. It's the impact that they need in their lives, and that's why I do believe that you can gauge a person's value just as much as you can gauge.
You can gauge a person's value, but I meant if you start off asking the question, what does value mean to you? At least for me personally, and I feel like if you ask someone that question, that's the definition that you wrote down of value clearly talks about people, but the definition of, like, if you say to someone, what does value mean to you? I mean, you might find this in your studies. You might find it actually going forward that some people are gonna have similar answers to me, or some people are gonna have similar answers to you. Just speaking
what
on
I
people,
want is I want to see what you're looking at, like how you gauge value. What do you associate the word with? How do you look at it? Like, that's why I'm asking it, because I want to see where your mindset is in terms of the term compared to, how what we're focusing on here.
That's good.
Yeah, and to get the kind of that root.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it now, but I really wanted to allow that conversation, that moment to speak for itself. I thought it was really good. I was really happy with just that, being able to have that conversation and to be able to, explain what it is that I'm trying to do, and to hear his perspective, where the confusion might be, or where he differs in his opinions, and just, and all of that. I just thought that was really good, and I don't think, I'm going to get that from many people. You're not going to get as much, pushback of a concept or idea or thing that you're doing as you will from your own sibling. But also allowed me to clarify quite a lot in terms of what we're trying to understand in terms of value. I think I talked about this last episode, so I'm not going to go too far deep into it, and I basically just said it. But yeah, that's what we're gauging today. That's what we're gauging here with UV effect. We're gauging what is your value, in terms of those who need it. Who you are meant to serve, who you're meant to impact. I'm going to keep saying it because that's what this is about. And so that's what we're going to get into with Mr. Daniel. I don't like saying his name. I call him brother in my real life. I just call him brother. But yeah, we're going to get into that with my dear brother. So let's kick off with one of my favorite questions.
When would you say you provide the biggest impact? What do you do in what situation, towards what people, thinking in that kind of realm?
Mostly when I'm open and communicating with people, diving into daily life problems or issues, just being vulnerable. I'm both open to being vulnerable. I feel like keeping in tune with myself by meditating makes a huge impact on other people, whether they know it or not.
Makes an impact on people whether they know it or not. We're going to get into that later. Keep an eye out or an ear out. I don't know. Yeah, do that.
And I guess one of the biggest things of recent is trying to, I guess what I'm looking for. Okay, so what's the way this? I'm trying to figure out if I want to say if this is even what I mean. But so if I'm looking for ways to avoid the fallen path, looking for ways to avoid falling into ego, by realizing that it's so easy to fall into ego. So something that I'm doing is recognizing self.
So self-aware.
So yeah, being a lot more self-aware. Yes, and that definitely is a huge impact on people. There it is, yeah.
That's so good, because self-awareness is so important, and I feel like it is it's a running thread behind what we're doing. I mean, it's super important to what this process, to be able to reflect honestly about yourself in this process. It's a prerequisite to being able to understand yourself fully in this way and be able to go through this process. But anyway, I felt like that was such a good response there in saying how it helps him to be wary of pride and ego, especially as it talks about, he says in his original answer about the ways that he makes the biggest impact. He talks about being open in communication, being vulnerable about issues, being bold. If you aren't aware of, prideful states, of, emotional states that counter your ability for him to be that open and communicative person, then he won't be able to make that wonderful and important impact. So I thought that was a really wonderful point, and just something to think about in terms of yourself. What might you be doing that counters your impact? What habits might you be developing that counters your impact, and what do you need to be working on in order to encourage your impact? So in this moment, I wanted to go a little bit deeper in the whole meditation aspect, because he said at that point, he said it impacts people without them even whether they know it or not. And I was just like, okay, I get what you're saying, but I want to dig a little bit deeper with that and seeing what does meditation, what is, practicing meditation allow you to do then for other people? What does it make you capable of? What does it allow you to access that then impacts people, right? So we go into that.
So meditation, how does it directly impact another person?
The same way that being self-aware directly impacts another person.
So you're saying, with the being up, it allows you to be open-minded in conversation, it allows you to be compassionate.
It allows me to be calm, allows me to think clearly, allows me to, all of these things without, if I didn't do the less emotional, less sensitive, or more balanced emotionally and less sensitive. Actually, you know what I should just say? It doesn't make you more or less sensitive, actually, or more or less emotional, because I would say I'm just as sensitive or just as emotional as I've always been. But it allows you to choose whether or not you want to be that in the moment.
So that balance, so we'll keep it at balance.
Yeah,
then,
balance.
Right?
Yeah.
I put emotional balance. I think that's okay.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
So that was a really good, like, comprehensive list of, of the ways that he makes an impact in people's lives. And they really tie so well into what his unique value statement inevitably ends up being. But also he ends up sharing about, when he makes that impact is like when he's making music, when he's like posting and sharing on Instagram, and when he's like reaching out and talking with friends. He talks with his friends all the time. And he is so, passionate about like helping them and just supporting them, being a part of their lives. And I think it's so wonderful. And so I actually asked him the counter question to the original question, which is, when do you provide the least impact? And his answer, he actually went on to say that he does the same things, specifically reaching out to people and talking with friends when he's making the least impact, but the impact is least or worse, I guess, because of one particular factor.
I'm forcing myself on people when
Okay.
I'm trying to control a situation a lot of the time. Whether it's a conversation or an action, I'm trying to control.
So these two questions are really supposed to be, in a sense, I guess you could consider it a mirror or reflections of each other. So thinking about how you make an impact, you're open to communication and you're vulnerable. But when you're not making an impact, you're forcing yourself on people. You're trying to control things. That really seems like making that impact on people really seems to touch with that aspect of freedom. Well, those innate gifts that you were talking about, that freedom part, even the compassionate and passionate part. I think that's really beautiful how it plays through those a lot from what you're saying. Whereas those are kind of opposite in your least impact. So I think that's something to look at.
Honestly, there's just so much to unpack in that like aspect of the conversation between the most impact and least impact and what we kind of found out about him. I'm going to try very hard to like condense this into the good stuff. And what I just said there, it really, really does. Like, it gets to what was so important about what we found out about him, in that he's an open individual when he's making an impact. He's open. He's vulnerable. He is bold. That was the other one. When he's not making an impact, he is prideful. He is lying, more like restricted, and controlling. So like I had said, that aspect, that negative or that lacking, that least impact part directly opposes even his innate gifts, right? So that freedom, that compassion, and what else did we have? That self-awareness, right? It directly opposes that, which means it would directly oppose the impact. I hope you're seeing that picture kind of coming together there. And so as you see how these parts, how the innate gifts directly affect the impact, right? And how not being conscious of your innate gifts, in fact, working against your innate gifts can directly affect your impact negatively. You're going to really, just seeing that image is important, but then we're going to really be able to see now when we get to the final statement, how that really comes together. How these two aspects just come together so well. And this next moment is a little another window into that, like the windows I love to share. This next moment is one of those windows, as I was asking him about what it is people connect to about him.
And then connection, so gravitating is one thing, right? I said that gravitating initially because that helps to kind of figure out why people come to you. But connection is like why people stay, right? Like why people want to be in your life.
I feel like because I feel like I can relate to them. And that I'm not trying to change them all the time. And that if I am, it's like they feel like it's they feel like I will help them grow.
Important, very important. Okay, so now that we have his innate gifts, and now that we have an understanding of his impact, we're going to start putting this mess together, my favorite part. All right, let's go. As per usual, I wrote out what I believed his statement was originally, and he came back and wrote his own, which he lovingly entitled the Padawan iteration. And so, but we ended up kind of refining it a little bit. And then we kind of got stuck. So this is the statement that we got stuck on. We had opposing views on it. So this is what he says. Oh, this is what the statement was. My unique value is being open to complex ideas and images in order to guide others to a fuller understanding of self and the world. So it's good, especially the first part. But there is an issue for me in terms of that, especially that last part, guiding others to a fuller understanding of themselves and the world. I wasn't so sure about having both of those. To me, it felt too encompassing and even a little disjointed. But he felt differently. He felt that they both needed to be there. That's that self, that he helps people to understand, an understanding or get to an understanding of self and the world. And this was his argument for that.
Okay. If I'm trying to understand to a child who you are inside of school, who you are inside of the school is to be disciplined and attentive and kind and compassionate. But if you don't understand that in school there are going to be bullies and it's going to be hard and there's going to be homework and there's authority figures, if they don't understand any of that stuff of how the school operates, then figuring out them understanding who they are inside of the school is just one piece if they've never come to realization with how the school operates, So they could even be working against themselves if they understand who they are inside of the world without understanding the world itself.
And so when hearing that, I thought that was really good reasoning. I got the imagery. I see what he was thinking and why he was thinking that way. But I still felt this disconnect in terms of what this statement is supposed to be saying about an individual. What is it supposed to be meaning? What is it supposed to be encapsulating? It was off.
There's something fundamentally off about it.
There's some kind of disconnect, but I don't know what it is.
This is the disconnect for me. I'm looking at how your innate gifts directly reflect your impact or directly induce the impact, right? Because this is what this statement is saying. Mm-hmm. It's this plus this in order to do this, right?
This being innate gifts plus impact in order to make an effect.
So being open to the complexities of self, right, allows not just self as in you, but also self around others self, right? Allows you to then guide others. The impact that you make, it allows you to guide others to a fuller understanding
of the world around them.
Eureka moment. But no, yeah, seriously, that was eureka right there. What we were able to uncover is how 1 being innate gifts plus 1, your impact, equals the UV effect, which, this is the issue right there, right? So this statement does not tell you what your effect is. The statement does not explain that, right? The statement is simply a definition. It is what you do, not how you do it or why you do it. Simply what you do, what you were designed to do. Embrace is all about the effect. Embrace is all about that answer. It's about the why. It's about the how. But this statement, all that we're uncovering is what. And it was so wonderful how we were able to just finish the he finished the sentence because he knew what we were trying to do at that very moment. It was just, I loved that.
So, it can't be 2. You're saying 1 plus 1. You're saying 1 plus 1 can't be 1 and 1.
Exactly.
Is what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the 1 and 1 that we were kept equaling to was that whole idea of self and the world, both. But it couldn't be. And so rewording this statement so that it was my unique values being open to the complexities of self, right? That's 1. In order to guide others to a fuller understanding of the world around them. That's the other plus 1, right? And it's in truly understanding the cause that we get to see the UV effect.
Thank you, Coach.
No problem, Padawan.
Okay, and now that we have the final statement, we are going to finish off with step 3, embrace. If you remember in last episode, Embrace is broken down to 3 sections. It's about how your unique value can affect your personal life, your professional life, and the lives of other people, the 3 Ps. We had only went through the people section with our last case study, but in this one, we are going to be doing the personal part or section. I think that you guys are going to get a lot from it. So before we jump into that, I'm gonna show a moment of where he was answering one question before we get into the 3P section. That was a little background question. It was asking about how he felt in moments where he used his unique value unconsciously in the past. Unique value is something that we use unconsciously. It's something that we are probably, as it is a part of who we are, it's something that we use in our passions and sometimes in the ways that we affect people. And so this question is now that he has the words to his unique value, he can now be thinking about how he might have used it before without knowing it and how it made him feel.
How is utilizing your unique value, or how has utilizing your unique value in the past affected you?
Honestly, stresses me out a little bit.
It does.
Yeah, it stresses me out a little bit. Just because I think there's an unhealthy connect to me needing them to see the world, needing them to understand the world around them in a better way.
It's interesting that you say needed, because your statement says guide.
Exactly. So with inside of, like, I guess when I'm just guiding, it feels great. But when I feel, even in guiding, like, even when you're guiding someone, like, and helping them, you're hoping that they come to the conclusion, or that it resonates with them.
Oh, yeah, for
sure. And you never really know what someone's going to do with once you lay out the bridge for them, or once you lay out the path for them. So it can be kind of stressful if I start attaching my value to whether they follow the advice or not.
This is such an interesting point, and it really does mirror what we were talking about earlier in terms of, like, that when he's not making an impact, he is getting into a place of trying to control people and a situation and his own emotions rather than being open and free, which is his more impactful place and stage. But it mirrors that, but then also it really reminds me of that analogy, like when you bring a horse to water, you know. It's interesting that in this world we attach value to the outcome, right? We attach value to the amount of success a person has achieved. We attach, value to the amount of money they've achieved, the celebrity, the status. That's where value lies, apparently. But that's not what value is or where it lies. Value is inherent. I mean, it's not determined by anybody else or by reward, money, celebrity, status. Those are rewards. Those are outcomes. That's not value. Value is something that is in something, that defines something. And so this idea that he said about the last thing that he said, when he said that he places his value in whether or not the person listens to them or is guided or, actually follows through with what he's instructed or the advice that he's given. He struggles with putting his value in that, and that's when it gets stressful. And that makes sense, because when we put our value in external variables, we put our value in things in which we have no control over. In that in of itself, we are allowing the world to define us. In that in of itself, we are losing sight, truly, of our inherent value, something that cannot be given or attributed to us, but something that we share with others, period. So in these next few moments, as we finish off here, we will get to see how Daniel, understanding his unique value, will affect the way that he sees himself, affects the way that he sees his value, and the way his individuality has been disrupted, and how it can now be accepted.
What 6 words you use to describe yourself? 3 positive, 3 negative.
Spiritual, creative, and a leader. But a negative. Actually, You know what? Instead of placing, I would actually describe compassion. I'd say compassionate inside, in replace of which one, in replace of spiritual, honestly. And for the three negative things I describe myself as impatient, doubtful, and a bit selfish.
If you remember from the first episode, under the first case study that we did, under the identify section, I actually start with the same question, asking them to describe themselves in 6 words. I brought this back to this point so that we can kind of reassess how this individual sees themselves after this whole process, but then also we're going to use these positive and negative observations in order to understand how they see themselves now through the lens of their unique value.
Can your UV, so your unique value, help you to put these observations in perspective in relationship to who you are, right? So can it help you can you see how both the positives and the negatives relate to who you are, like who you need to be, who you're designed to be, right? Or, in other words, how do these observations relate to your UV? So think about it that way. So we're going to start with the positive. So first, just give me a yes or no if your unique value can help you to put these observations in personal perspective.
Okay. In personal perspective.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So now I want you to go through. I'm going to write down the first one. So compassionate, and I want you to tell me what your unique value almost like how your unique value relates to this observation.
Because I care about people, basically. I care about what happens to you, and I care about the suffering, unnecessary suffering that we burden ourselves with, because I've done the same with me.
Creativity, or being creative.
I see things in different ways, so if I can't get it to you through words, hopefully I can get it to you through music, and if I can't get it to you through music, I get it to you through video. So there's a multiple, and even with inside of words, I can come up with different stories or different analogies and metaphors. There's just a plethora of ways I can try to get you to understand the world around you and yourself at the same time. So
I like that. And then the last one is leader.
Well, I guess it's only... really what it is natural born leader, but a natural born leader is different because that's more of a feeling than it is like I am a leader thing. And I guess to naturally want to lead someone in a better direction.
So yeah, that question I find is really important in order to help the individual to recognize that, these aspects that they see in themselves are a part of them and are used or are important to their unique value, because it's you. All of us is you. And even the negative aspects, we talk about them as well, and a lot of the negative aspects kind of hindered his ability to use as a unique value and hindered his ability to kind of be as impactful. But they're still a part of him, and it's important to recognize these things and to accept these things. And so I actually wanted to share in this last moment, I really wanted to share his answer to this question about, what he suppresses about himself and why. And he actually, I'll go ahead and give us a little spoiler. He doesn't really suppress any of the negative aspects. He's aware and he accepts them, and he's working to be better at them, which is wonderful. But what he does suppress is interesting. He seems to be more in tune or aligned with even his negative aspects more than his positive aspects in terms of understanding and accepting how they are a part of him and operate in him. It's really interesting, but as he goes on here and explains why this is, it really goes back to what we keep talking about in the way that we allow the world to define ourselves. And then for him, how becoming and being conscious of that and being conscious of working against that definition that the world has placed on him, he can change the way he sees himself and embrace his inherent unique value.
I think it's just something about how I grew up. I'm pretty sure it's just you grow up with just hearing you're such a bad kid all the time.
Just interjecting really quick, he was he got himself into a lot of trouble when he was younger. He wasn't like an awful kid at all. Like he was a very honest and sweet kid, but he would often find himself in a lot of trouble. And so throughout the years, we'd always make comments about that and jokes about, the kind of things he'd get up to. And yeah, so that's what he's talking about.
And then kind of realizing, you hear both. You hear from your mom that you're the head, you're not the tail, and from your dad that you're the head, not the tail, but you also hear from your dad, you're a punk. And there's a lot that you're like, you don't listen, you always think pessimistically, you hear a lot of those things. So then when you go to public school, kids just, they're just trying to do the worst. They're really trying to bring the worst out of you. That was what, I don't know, 7 more years of just trying to figure out what I was worth when everyone's trying to take that worth away from you and give it to themselves. So it's much harder to recognize. You become basically just as damaged as the rest of the world once you try to recognize, where for me, I'm lucky that I had God and this family because, we were much more into trying to pour into your worth. But for most people, I'm not surprised that they go their whole lives with recognizing. People clearly recognize the bad in them more than they recognize the good inside of them. Even though they'll play it up like, oh yeah, like I'm this, and this. Yeah. If you ever hit the nerve of the thing that they hate about themselves, people see that all the time. That's why they're so good at covering it up. Yeah. They know exactly what to cover up. Yeah.
Shadow.
Yeah, it's a shadow. So that's why I guess it's harder for me to accept those things. But what's funny is that I have to constantly remember that it's easier for me to accept these things than most people because it's been worked out of me. Negative has been worked out of me at such an early age that even if it feels like, oh, it's taken so long to do this, and I'm only 22. For most people, they could have started now and it won't be till 40 because it does take a long time. If it's taken 22 years for me to get to a place where I can finally start accepting the good inside of me, even over the course of years, you accept it more and more and more. For most people, it just takes double that time, so.
So would you say, for most people, or even for yourself, that having with this whole UV thing, having a statement or having this image of what is good about you, what is useful about you, what is important about you could help them to quicker accept the good about them, knowing your unique value, knowing your purpose in this way can help someone quicker or better accept these positive attributes of themselves.
Absolutely. It's helped me accept them quicker in these last 3 days.
Oh, good.
That was awesome. And just to be able to hear how just the things that he's went through has affected him, and seeing how in just this conversation has allowed him to kind of heal through it and to see himself in a better light. That was just really, just that whole dialogue there was so impactful for me in that moment, and being able to listen to it back. So I'm really happy that I was able to do this with him and to share this with you all. I hope that this conversation has impacted you, that it has maybe helped to see yourself a little bit better and just connect to another individual that maybe you relate to. And so, yeah, I thank you again so much for joining me for another episode of the UV Effect podcast. Thank you again for listening, for coming back. Make sure to like and share and let people know about it if you like what we're doing here. And also, if you would like to be a part of the research that I'm doing, potentially identify, define, and embrace your unique value, and possibly share your case study on the podcast, definitely make sure to reach out to me on Instagram at Gabrielle Jordan INTL. And also make sure to follow me. Why not? You can also follow the podcast at the UV Effect on Instagram. So yeah, thanks again, and I hope that you'll join me next week. Another case study. See you then.